There are people who cannot walk through a single hour of life without music. Not because they're bored, but because silence is too loud. Psychologists call it emotional regulation, but the truth is darker than that. Music becomes a shield, a thin layer of sound protecting the mind from thoughts it doesn't want to face. Some people don't listen to music. They escape into it. Every beat becomes a heartbeat they wish they had. Every melody becomes a memory they never lived. And every lyric becomes a voice that speaks the words they're afraid to say. For them, silence isn't peaceful. Silence is a mirror, and mirrors show too much. So they keep the music running, in the background, in their headphones, in their rooms, in their veins. Not to feel more, but to feel less. Because deep down they know, when the music stops, the mind starts talking again. And some minds are not safe to be left alone. But escaping into sound has a limit. Because sooner or later, the world outside forces its way in. And nothing breaks through the walls of the mind like war, that ancient, brutal reminder that humanity has never learned how to live with itself. War is not just a battlefield. It is a psychological earthquake, a silent infection that spreads through generations. It destroys cities, yes, but it destroys inner worlds even faster. People think war is about borders, power, territory. But the truth is simpler and darker. War is what happens when a society loses the war inside its own mind. Every explosion is a thought that was never resolved. Every fallen soldier is a conversation humanity refused to have. Every refugee is a memory forced to walk away from itself. And the damage doesn't end when the guns stop. War lingers in the trembling hands of a child who can't sleep, in the silence of a mother who lost her son, in the eyes of a man who survived but never returned. Economies collapse, governments fracture, land burns. But the deepest wounds are invisible, etched into the psyche of people who will never again trust the world to be safe. War teaches one lesson, that destruction is easy and rebuilding is slow. Pain spreads quickly, but healing moves like a wounded animal. And maybe that's why some people need music all the time, because the world outside is loud with violence, and the world inside is louder with fear. But the story doesn't end here, because history has shown us moments when the world itself fell into darkness, not metaphorically, but literally. And that darkness is where the next chapter begins. But if war can break a society, there was a moment in history when the sky itself broke humanity. In the year 536, the world woke up without a sunrise. A volcanic eruption in Iceland threw a veil of ash across the northern hemisphere, turning daylight into a cold, gray twilight. For 18 months, the sun was nothing more than a pale shadow. Crops failed. Temperatures collapsed. Famine spread like a living creature, and in the silence that followed, plague arrived, as if the darkness had opened a door for something far worse. People didn't understand science back then. They thought the world was ending. They thought God had turned his face away. They thought the sky was punishing them. But the truth is simpler and more terrifying. Nature doesn't need a reason to destroy us. It only needs a moment. And in that moment, humanity realized something it still refuses to accept, that the world can change overnight, and we are far more fragile than we pretend to be. Yet even this wasn't the last time humanity faced a threat it didn't understand. Because today, a new kind of darkness is rising, not from the sky, but from the machines we build. And that darkness is where the final chapter begins. The darkness of 536 showed humanity how fragile it truly is. But today, a new kind of shadow rises, not from the sky, not from the earth, but from the circuits we build with our own hands. In the modern world, power is no longer measured in armies or borders. It is measured in intelligence, not human intelligence, but the artificial kind. And some nations have realized this sooner than others. China has begun to treat its AI engineers the way ancient empires guarded their alchemists, not as workers, but as national assets. People who cannot simply leave because their minds carry the blueprints of the future. Companies like DeepSeek shocked the world by doing what no one expected, delivering performance that rivaled the West at a fraction of the cost. And suddenly, the global race for power shifted from land and oil to algorithms and silicon. But behind the headlines, something deeper is happening. A quiet fear. A recognition that the next war won't be fought with tanks or missiles, but with models, data, and the people capable of building them. China remembers what happened to Meng Wanzhou. It remembers how a single arrest shook the balance of global technology. And now its message is clear. Protect the talent, protect the knowledge, protect the future. Because in this new era, the most dangerous weapon is not a bomb, but a mind. And maybe that's why people cling to music, why they fear silence, why they drown out the noise of a world changing too fast. Because deep down, they sense what's coming. A future where the battles are invisible, the borders are digital, and the darkness doesn't fall from the sky. It rises from the code. You be the judge. If you're awake, you already know what comes next. Support the movement. Show where you stand. Your voice carries further than you think.